Can anyone catch them, do you think?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, unbelievable. We didn't expect that.
As unbelievable as it sounds, this is another Arsenal podcast. That is the Away Gooners podcast. We bring news and reaction from Arsenal fans from all over the world. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Away Gooners podcast. We have got the whole gang back with us. Welcome, Arun, Deepak, and Ellen.
Hello.
Deepak, everyone was missing you actually. There were a couple of people who pinged me
Hi.
and asked me like, when is Deepak coming back? No, seriously.
Fans.
Fans. But it's a really good day to come back and talk about Arsenal. Actually, we have got two games, one was very. Both the games were very entertaining. We got through the Europa and then I thought like for the Leicester game for sure we are not going to play something like that, and that was a great game. Arun, what's your thoughts on both the games?
Well, I don't think I could have asked for anything better than that. The Europa game was interesting because I saw the first half and I had a meeting that started right after the first half ended and we had the break. So I was having the TV on mute while answering. I was already sick, as you know, last week. So the good thing was I didn't have to talk during the meeting. But the bad thing was my video was on. I couldn't turn that off and I couldn't react to any of our goals. So, I was muffling my screams and I was just with the sickness and with my boss looking at me on the computer and the meeting going on. I just really couldn't I had to wait till the meeting got over. And then I got up from my chair and I just screamed. Like I literally did. I had to go to my wife and I'd be like, yes, we won. So yeah, it was amazing and it was a complete roller coaster.
Yeah.
In terms of like how the game panned out and like how close we were to like going out of the competition, courtesy Ceballos, and then like these guys come back and like no, we are staying here. We're going to put you through the same misery for another round with playing against Olympiacos. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun watching that game and Leicester game too. Like Leicester was, for me, was probably the most professional we've played all of the season. So in that sense, like it made waking up after a bad night's sleep, like waking up early on a Sunday morning, worthwhile. So yeah, like
waking up at 7 is early for you, and then I woke up at 4.
Well, you're almost like 5 to 6 years younger than me. Your 4 is my 7, So that makes a lot of difference when you get to 35. You'll realize that.
But please don't forget, after a long time, we are getting early games for people in India. Like we were like continuously watching like 12:30, 1:30 in the night, and the match gets over by 3:34, and then like we have to wake up again by 6 or 7 for the next day.
Yeah.
And those were like midweek games or like games on Mondays, not even on weekends, and we can sleep later.
It reminds me of the time we would like stay up to watch Champions League. Thank God I don't have to watch Champions League anymore. We're not playing in Europe anymore. So.
Europa is sort of Europe, Deepak, isn't it?
It is actually given the situation we are in, or like the squad or whatever it is. Europa is Europe for us.
But
probably will be for the next 2-3
years. So we are not going to win the Europa.
Deepak,
2-3 years, come on.
No, that's what no, the only way for us to stay in Europe is mostly by winning the Europa, and if we win the Europa, we go to Champions League. No more Europa.
And then we drop back again.
Deepak, no, Ellen, you can never say no more Europa. We're going to be back there during the knockout stages. So even if we go to the Champions League, we'll always find our way to Europa.
But we don't know. We might finish even 4th.
This man's optimism. Give me an ounce of that.
I don't think he's optimistic. He's just being sarcastic. There is no way we could finish 4th. But it's like we are through the woods, right? Deepak, we have a pretty decent run of fixtures from now on. Before this we had a very tough run.
No.
No.
When it comes to Arsenal, there is no like pretty decent
Easy
fixture for me.
fixtures.
No, every game is like we make every game hard for ourselves. So I don't say like any easy game. On paper, it might be like we expect our team to turn up, but throughout the season, we have seen like we have like lost like the games which we were supposed to win. So I wouldn't say like it's an easy run up. On paper, you might say it is, but when it comes to Arsenal, none of the games are easy.
That is true.
At least for
So-
this season.
Yeah, that is true. So actually, Arteta seems to be working better with bigger oppositions than with or stress games than with routine wins. Don't you think? Like when it comes to cup games, he's getting things on point, and then when it comes to like Manchester City, we are not getting battered. When it comes to Leicester, we have a good game. We played well against Chelsea. We played against United. So, are you worried about the easier run of fixtures than the hard run that we went through?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Deepak. Go ahead.
No,
You're the
thing
most
is, like,
wanted people.
no, like given the team we have right now, like breaking down like teams has been like the tougher thing than like playing against bigger opposition. Nowadays we sit back and try to win them on counter. But when it comes to facing Burnley or let's say like smaller teams like West Brom or something, they give us the ball and we don't know what to do with that ball given the players we have. So that might be one of the reasons.
Do you really think we're still at that spot? Like, because based on like how the team has been gelling, again, I'm not saying that this team is going to win all the games, but just over the last few games, based on how we've been gelling, it seems like we're creating way more chances than we used to. That was our biggest problem, be it a low block team or like a proper high team. The only problem that we had was the lack of chances. Now we are creating a lot more chances, and we do have players who can unlock these differences. I'm not talking about ESR. I'm talking about Odegaard. Like he's the kind of guy you're probably going to need in a game against a team that plays low block. So because he knows how to pick the last pass perfectly, and he's been showing that as well. So I really believe like the conundrum that we are facing with these low block teams, for me at least, there seems to be like some light that wasn't like visible during a horrific run of form where we just couldn't like we just didn't like like Deepak said, we had the ball but we had no idea what to do. So we were sending like crosses in and all that. But now with the way in which the team is progressing, the ball progression, if you see the way in which players are getting into positions, it seems like it's a very different team from what we saw before. And that seems to like show that we could possibly even like create chances against these low block teams and win. I might be completely wrong here. It's just based on like how I've seen the team progress, because football teams are not made like in half a season or one season. It takes a while to create like a good team that can gel together and win, unless you're like City, who can like just pay whatever they want and get the team they want. When you don't have that ability, you really need to like make the team work together and realize that they can actually work together and win games. I think that's happening now, which is probably giving the players confidence that they could create more chances and beat these low block teams, and that's what I feel.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, like see, regarding Odegaard, right? Like I'm just continuing whatever like Deepak and Arun started. Like, see, Odegaard is a proper number 10, and like that difference we are able to see. I'm not saying about his passing or other things. He runs into positions where he brings the players towards him. Like he runs into those spaces which are like completely unoccupied before. Now, like there's a player running there. So, and similarly, if you see, right, Cedric playing with Pepe, like Cedric goes and like brings some of the defenders towards him. So this gives a lot of space for Pepe to do whatever he wants to do. Pepe hasn't done anything different what he was doing before, but with other players, right, he's getting more spaces. Similarly, it happens for the other side also, who is playing on the other like wing back. So that is why we are seeing a lot more attacks now, because we have some people now who are able to bring in like the defenders or the. See, Laka was the only player who was trying to do all of that. Now there are a lot more players, so we are able to do a lot more attack. See, I want to add two more things here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like on the same area. Like one is like regarding, it's a stat regarding our last win. Like we haven't won our away game against a top 3 team, whoever was in the position as top 3 at that time,
It's
after
2015.
2015.
Yeah.
And the last time we did it, like Santi scored a penalty and like Santi assisted one more goal, like where like we defeated Man City 2-0.
Oh, the City one,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Coquelin and
Yeah.
Santi magic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Like
a great
2-0.
game.
Like that was way back. Like when I don't think like many players like who are playing in Premier League haven't played at that time.
I
So
think
it was very
Arteta
bad.
scored that goal, right? The winning goal was, I think,
No, not Arteta. Not Arteta. Somebody else. I think Giroud.
It was
I'm not
Giroud.
sure
It
on that.
was a
I think it's
cross
Giroud.
it was a free
For
kick
pass,
from
it's an
Cazorla.
assist from Santi. That I remember. Like he scores the first like a penalty and then like this thing.
Yeah.
Santi has
One
like
other
an
thing-
amazing game on that day.
Yeah.
He just passes the whole midfield. Oh my God, just missed
So
that
that's
guy so much.
actually that is a very good stat for us because like see we are talking about Arteta as like someone like who is like what to say like plays well against like big teams and that is continuing. And this season, right, we had like lot of negative stats like first time like team was like winning against us, like first time like they are doing a double kind of thing. So it was really good to see such a stat also coming up in the same season as we grow.
No, we also had the
And
stat
second-
of winning in Old Trafford, right? So that was after
That's
so
what
many
I'm
years.
saying.
So,
Like
yeah.
against big teams, it is continuous thing. It is
Mhm.
like happening. Second thing, right? See, when Arteta said like at the beginning of this Leicester match that he is not like able to tolerate we are still at 10th place.
Mhm.
We should be way up and like he gave a clear statement that we are fighting for all the trophies
Mhm.
or like all the games, like whether it's like a trophy or like whether it's a single game, like he's like fighting to win everything or what he thinks is the best team that can compete with him. He's trying to do that. And when we saw that squad, right, like a lot of people are making fun of him. You give such a statement and you play such a kind of 11. Like there was no Saka, there was like no Partey, there was like no Auba, and we still defeated a Leicester, which was an informed team, which was defeating like the top 6 teams like with much ease this season compared to the previous years. We
Mhm.
still won it. And if you see his last few games, right, like or like the last like 5 or 10 games of Arsenal, we are playing a lot of different personals depending upon like our opposition. In
Mhm.
some games, right, we are playing ESR and Odegaard. Some games it is only Odegaard, or some games it is ESR. And after this match also, like or I'm not sure whether after Europa, like where I felt like Martinelli could have played few minutes, he came back and gave a clear reason why he doesn't want to start Martinelli. Maybe it was Pep's effort to like Foden, like they were hiding him for a long time, and when he came to the scene, he was a fully grown player. I think maybe he's trying something like that with Martinelli. But what I was able to infer from all of this, right? Arteta is trying to do something which was like Wenger's issue. Wenger always plays with same style, whoever be the opponent or whatever style of the opponent. He changed it at the very late end against the big teams, and we started seeing some results. Arteta is trying to create a team, something like what Manchester City or the other big teams have. Play with different people depending upon the opposition, but still play with the same level of intensity and attitude. Like whoever is going to be the players, like they are all going to make us win on that day.
I actually,
and like whatever be the thing,
I
they
actually
can
had
play
a
in different
point on.
formation.
I actually had a point on this that I wanted to discuss later, but now that you've brought up, so basically this season, if you see in Premier League, the whole counter-attacking of the fast-flowing teams are not going to work that much especially because last season was such a compact season, and this season is again a compact season. That's why I think Manchester City is running away, because they have two separate starting 11s that could play. Right, like no other team could do it, and Liverpool cannot do it because it's not just about that. They are getting tired. Players are going through fatigue. But Arsenal, for all the talks that we have, like Ellen said, we have actually the attackers who are completely different and like completely changeable. Like all our front four, we have two front fours, which apart from Saka, we can say are all even-footed, right? Aubameyang, Lacazette. Who do you start? Either one. Both of them are almost in the same space. Pepe, Willian, same. Odegaard and ESR the same. So we have completely two sets of the front four that we can start. But also the other problem I see in that is all our attacking options are completely different, right? Pepe if you take Pepe is not like Saka or Willian or say Odegaard or ESR. He is completely different. Willian is completely different. So this means that we cannot have a playing strategy, or we need specific players. Like for Pepe, right? We need Cedric behind him for that to work. If Cedric's not available,
it's not about Pepe needing Cedric. He needs someone who can overlap and not they put all the defensive responsibilities on him. If Bayern is good enough to do that, then Pepe wouldn't have had a lot of problems. Bayern's lack of that ability is what made Arteta have him be an inverted fullback, because he wanted him to join the attack, which would prevent him from going too much forward, and with his lack of pace not come back at the time.
But that's the question I'm having, right? Because these players are very specific. They have very specific skill set and strengths, especially from a squad building perspective. Do you want a team that has completely varied skill sets, or players who have similar skill set for each positions?
Not exactly, because if you're going to have similar skill set or this thing, right, your gameplay is also going to be monotonous, and it could be easily broken down by your opponents.
There is no.
You need people with say for example, Deepak was saying, right, against teams which are going to defend as a group, we need someone to do the difference, right? You need players like Pepe or others for that mainly. But the problem here is leave Bellerin or Cedric for that matter, or Pepe. If you see after the back three which Conte brought in, the wing backs coming into picture, you could see a lot of fullbacks going on attack. It was not that way. They go on attack because that helps freeze the front three or the front four or whatever formation they play. That helps the other players to come and participate as an attack and participate in defense also if needed. So that is the evolution that has happened. See, Bellerin was doing that when he had pace, because he can go from this end and that end. Now, right, he cannot commit completely into forward, because if there's a counter attack, he is vulnerable. So if he's going to commit forward, right, the right back or the right wing back or the whoever is going to play as the right winger, along with Bellerin, they have to take up additional responsibility of defending too. Mm-hmm. See, when you take your strikers or forwards, right, it's good they are able to help you in defense, but that is not their main role. And if you're going to put more weightage on that, right, that is going to impact their attacking capabilities. That is what was happening to Pepe. It is not Bellerin or Cedric is ideally suited for him. Any player who can play that role, helping him to do his attack, will help him. See, it could be as I said, it is not only coinciding with Cedric.
No,
it is also
my question is,
ESR
I get it.
Well as Odegaard playing at the same time.
No, I get it from this season perspective. What my question is how do we build a team? Say, for example, say even Bellerin learns this skill of defending. Let's say that happens, right? But that kind of run and skill would be valid only if Pepe plays. If Saka plays, Bellerin needs to go back to his cutting inside,
not exactly.
being a midfielder.
Not exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Or
not
if Willian plays, that's going to be a different role. So my question is
even if because even if Saka plays that area, Bellerin going there and doing this thing, right, will give more space for Saka to do his attack too. See, Saka will be even more lethal than one. See, now when Saka has the ball or anybody has the ball, there are when there is a group of defenders trying to defend, they are going to stop that person from doing a pass or attacking the goal. So you take Tielemans' goal against us, he scored it because there was nobody to go near him. He was allowed to run till the end because they were expecting a pass, and he allowed he ran till the end and scored that goal directly. See, when you are defending, right? See, that's a mistake. That's a different thing. But what I'm trying to say is when you get free space, you can do a lot more things than what you normally do. And to get that free space, right, these players have to contribute in a different way. It's not they have to do that always, but they should have that skill set also. And that is what see, Arteta is developing. Say, I'm not saying Bellerin is weak or anything. Maybe Bellerin can also do that in the next season. You could see that Arteta is slowly developing a lot more. See, I just want to give a benefit of doubt. I'm not saying Bellerin will definitely do it, but Arteta is trying to find out various ways. With Arteta, that is what I am liking. He has lot of areas where he has to improve in substitutions and lot more areas. But I could see he's trying to form a team which can adapt and play in different styles. See, Emery was trying to do that, but he was trying to do that in a different way. Every match he comes up with a different plan like this thing and confusing the team. Whereas Arteta, right, has a clear strategy where he slowly develops the team according to the needs. And now the team is a lot more capable of playing in different positions than what they were when Arteta started.
But Deepak, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
To your point of players being completely different, I believe that different players actually provide a new outlet when your plan A is not working. If you're playing Saka and it is not working, there's no point in playing another guy called Saka, another guy who's exactly like Saka at that point as a substitute. He's not going to be able to make any difference. And at that point is when you need different players and different styles just to create some chaos and confuse the opposition. Plus, I really believe that footballers, as they age, their skills, they learn new skills, they develop new skills. Unless you're someone who doesn't want to improve, you always learn and improve and your ability. It's not about your abilities, it's about your skills and your aptitude that keeps increasing as they keep playing more and more with multiple managers, more experience. So it is not like a guy like Pepe would not be able to do what a Saka does when the situation demands. So it really, for me, this is very positive in the sense we are having multiple players who can provide that X factor that we lack during the most inopportune times with what they can provide to the team, with their gameplay. When we saw how Pepe played in this game, it's probably the best game that he's played in a national jersey, and it's good that he's improving with every game. But how he played was definitely different from how Saka plays.
Yeah.
And the same way how Willian plays and how Martinelli play are not the same. How Willian plays or how if Auba is on the left, how that happens is completely different, and that provides us with a lot more opportunities and options. And I think that's definitely a good thing for a team that is evolving into the next level to have. It's a problem of plenty, but a problem of plenty is never a problem. It's always good.
Well, I hope so. But that's a good headache to have, and I'm happy that I'm not the one who's making the decision for the next game who's going to be the front three or
just
four.
Think about this, Picasso. Just whenever you have thoughts like this, go back 5 to 6 years.
I don't want
if there was a Chamak and if the Chamak is not performing well, the person that you will have to call would be Bentner.
Bentner,
life was bad back then. Yes, and now life is not great, but at least we have options who could provide us who we could look up with confidence. So
that is true. That is a good situation to be. But the bad situation that I wanted to ask about, Deepak, is about our mistakes leading to the goal. For the past, I don't know how many games, at least from December, I'm seeing is all the goals that we have conceded, or most of the goals that we have conceded, is our own undoing. In Europa League, both the goals were Ceballos doing what Ceballos does. And then in this game, in Leicester game, it was again, I don't know whose mistake is it. Some say it's Mari's mistake. Some say it's Elneny's mistake. I don't know, but it's a mistake. Waking up at 4 a.m. and watching that goal drains me out of my, drains every bit of passion I have for the game right there. But those are
for love.
Yeah, those are things that I'm worried about, because we have been doing this for a long time. Arsenal has been about we concede goals by individual mistakes for a long time, but we have added something else to our game now, which is conceding early goals. Are you worried about the whole defense or individual errors? Is it a individual quality issue, or do you think it is just a phase that we have to go through?
I think it's mainly due to the concentration of the players. They lose concentration. First of all, Ceballos is useless. He has so much lapses of concentration in a single game. If you see, he is so lethargic, like ANM, not as much as
I was thinking about the same thing. Amen.
Amen. But still, he loses concentration easily. I don't know how he didn't see that player who was running just beside him. And I don't know what he was thinking in his mind to do that back, whatever he did there. So it is down to like individual mistakes, and I don't know like how much Arteta can do. Like players have to take the responsibility here.
No, but this is also like a concern, right? Because it's not just about the goals that we concede. We have got a lot of red cards. We've got a lot of other issues. So it's all about like discipline. It's all about like individual errors. If you consider the Wolves game, right? If we didn't get those 2 red cards, we would have gotten something out of that game. We might have. So these are
Wolves
things.
game is like different there, whatever it is.
No, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but
Wolves game, like that penalty was not at all a penalty. Like
yeah,
so
but
don't like let us take that game as an example. But I agree on your point that like there is a continuous set of mistakes. But again, like see, there are 2 factors here. One is like some of our players are not capable. Like say, just let me go into old example. Bentner, if he misses a goal, right, he'll say the goalpost has moved. He's such a kind of a guy, and you cannot change him at all. He's such a kind of a guy. Like say, there are some issues like that. Like some players, right, they cannot be concentrated the complete 90 minutes, whatever you do. But like the other phases, like we are also doing a lot of transitioning. Like say, we are playing a lot of different formations, like which is good. Like, but the side effect is like we are doing that, like starting to learn those things. So there will be 1 or 2 mistakes happening because of that also. And that is something, right? Like, no, I'm just like not saying like, I'm just saying like, what are all the reasons why we could like, I'm just trying to put it on the other side and trying to find out. Lot of different players, right, are playing together for the first time. Like as a season, like say, there will be games where they will be really good, but like there will be games also where there will be a dip. So it's a combination of several factors. But again, like seeing, we always say this is a transition which won't happen in a year. It will take multiple transfer windows. So we will be like losing some of these non-concentration players because the way we are playing now, we need somebody like who's going to be like 100% like committed all for the entire 90 minutes plus the injury time also. So that kind of players will start coming in, and that once the team also plays in this formations more, right, they will know in like as a what to say like instinct itself, like what will happen. Like it will not be like they have to see or something. They know like where the pass will go, and like players will run automatically. So or they'll know for this kind of defending whom has to run and everything. So that right will stop. I won't say like will prevent like there will be no mistakes. Like even the bigger team make mistakes. Great goalkeepers make mistakes sometimes too. So that kind of mistakes will be very less going forward. It's a phase. Definitely, like that's an area where we have to improve. But like you could see, I'll just give an example where like we are improving with Xhaka, right? We say like he's bound to make mistakes, and I'm one of the person to agree on that. He has played 12 continuous matches like after his red card, all the matches like 90 minutes, and this season, right, every 3 days we have match, and even with all those fatigues, he hasn't made big blunders like he normally does. Which shows like players can improve, or like Arteta is
Deepak is so proud of that
that
statement. Deepak is so proud.
No, that's a real fact. We cannot deny that. Like with like Xhaka, right? Like when he's fit itself, I will always worry whether when that blunder will come, because he's not a guy who's going to concentrate that 90 minutes. But like I could see that like even with all this fatigue.
No, I get that, Ellen. But going back to Deepak actually about this, especially about the part where we are doing this early goals. That's the concern for me. It's not that we are making mistakes. We are losing the concentration, like you said, but we shouldn't be losing the concentration in the first 10 minutes. How many games this season have we let in a goal within like first 15 minutes? That is not a concentration issue, right, Deepak? How can someone not have concentration at the start of a game?
That is like a tough question to answer. Coming to the Leicester game, like the goal which we like gave away, that was like it was like a bad mistake. It wasn't like an individual mistake. It was like a collective mistake.
Collective team mistake.
Entire like backline. So probably it should have been Mari who should have covered it, or maybe he was like worried about Wadi, but Lewis was there covering him. So Lewis should have shouted at Mari to go towards the ball. And I don't know what Elneny was doing. He was running like a stupid guy towards the goalpost instead of covering. So
his running was like his passing.
Yeah. So this was like an entire team's fault. So this wasn't like an individual mistake. And
no, it's not about the individual mistake. It's about
coming
like
towards the start which we are having. That is like, I don't know, like what goes through the player's mind. maybe they are waiting for the opposition team to score a goal to wake them up or something, or it is some other thing which is going on in their mind, which I cannot answer. I don't know what to answer.
No, the other thing is, right, like why I brought that up to you is we have gotten this new way of taking or kicking off from the center line, where we get the ball, we pass it back to our center back, and our center back lobs a ball to our left wing, where like Tierney or someone gets the ball. But no one gets it there, right? Because it's a lob pass, that's the first pass, it goes away to the opposition and they attack. And I've seen this in every game that we are doing the same thing. When we are getting a kickoff, that's what we do. And I don't understand. This is part of the strategy, right? This, for me to see it every game, this is part of a strategy. Why are we having a strategy where we are looking to lose the ball at the first go?
That is a question for Arteta.
Make the game more interesting. Otherwise, it will be boring if we just keep winning 3-0, 4-0. We need to let them at least make a game of it.
Oh my God. Yeah, but that is the concern that I've been having, because this is causing a lot of stress on the team, and that is where we are getting a lot of stress, and that's the start that we are always getting hammered with the start. And that is something that I cannot even understand. And yeah,
because just to help you out, like it's better to concede like in the first 10 minutes rather than the last 10 minutes. Like now in the first 10 minutes, right, we at least have a chance to like fight back, or like see, maybe it might be like, just to put on the human side, it might be a strategy from Arteta to make the players focused.
So he might be saying, you useless guys won't do anything, at least give them the ball.
Give the ball, then like that will make you focused. Like for the 90 minutes. Like,
but seriously, when I saw the Ceballos guy making that mistake, it reminded me of the time when
that's an individual person mistake.
Yeah, no, but it reminded me of the time when Emery used to have Guendouzi play as the last man. And then Guendouzi will do something stupid or make a stupid foul and then shout at everyone else. That's what it reminded me of. And I would definitely not sign him back.
So Picasso, just like on your point, usually when like we have these 11 guys playing and someone makes a mistake, if we're lucky enough, there will always be another one to cover for that mistake, right? It's
Arsenal,
always,
we are never lucky.
That's the thing. Like if you think about the mistakes that led to the goal, the one that Cedric led for the Aston Villa game, there was nobody close to him. Nope. Similarly, Ceballos, the guy who was closest to him was Barron, and he had no idea what was going on at that point. I really believe like it's down to like a combination of like a lot of the things that happened which led to their goals could possibly not end up in goals. That would be like lucky or unlucky, however you could call it. But then a lot of things have happened where we've seen like mistakes like this go completely unpunished. So it's probably like, I don't know if it is, I don't know if I could say probably, but the fact that like all this is happening in situations where we do not have anyone to cover the mistakes of those people makes it magnified, in my opinion. And that's why we feel it's like bigger than what it is.
Yeah. So when the thing like Arun was saying was the mistakes which we make looks like magnified, even if like when we take like bigger teams like Manchester City, they make mistakes like every game. Like usually Rodri is the one who makes mistakes, but there are like people for them who somehow covers it, or they are lucky enough the opponent team doesn't score. For us, it is always the bad thing which happens.
We are never lucky. We are Arsenal.
The opponent team somehow scores it, or the mistakes which we make are in like the dangerous areas, like in the final third of the opponent team. That's where we usually tend to make mistakes, not in the middle of the field. So that is down to the players, which hopefully they try to avoid. Yeah, let's see. Like,
but one thing I liked about
the like if you kick Ceballos out of the team. He's like spreading all this thing around to every other player.
Because just to give a same viewpoint, like say, I might like disagree a little with Deepak here. Like say, even we might make mistakes at the midfield that is not getting noticed because like that is not having any immediate impact. See, just to take another example, like Liverpool, right? They also make a lot of mistakes. But when Allison made mistakes, right, like there was nobody to help him out and they conceded, and like those mistakes were magnified. Just like on the same points, whatever like Arun and Deepak were saying. So, or like when goalkeepers make mistakes, when Kepa was making a lot of mistakes for Chelsea, it was magnified. See, Chelsea is still not a good team and they make lots of mistakes, but like they are not magnified as it was before because like they were not punished. Arsenal were always punished, and that's why like it is looking that much bad. But speaking on all of these things, right, like there are a lot of work happening in the training, which is having a lot of impact on our team. And one good example was like the Leicester goals. Maybe you can talk about that.
No. Before that, right, I actually wanted to bring something else on this part because Deepak mentioned City. Leicester game, we were doing all this like play acting, or even when we got a little foul, like Tierney was falling down.
Oh my God,
time wasting. We never used to do that. Like Arsenal never used to time waste, and I was so happy to see that we are time wasting at last. We know how to time waste.
Time wasting is okay, Picasso, but like I don't want Tierney to get a card for what he did. Like he was not even close, and he was acting like some like a movie kind of an acting. Like that is not good at all.
Like we are not in the Rivaldo era anymore. Like these things cannot go unpunished. We have VAR, like and and we know how VAR acts against us. So
I get it. No, I get it. It was just happy to see that Arsenal does all these things, right? Like when we did when I think Cedric did a cynical foul when Leicester tried to break and Cedric kind of pulled someone back and then it was a foul. So we never used to make those fouls. We always used to shout, make that foul, take the card, right?
Yeah, that is okay. Like play acting is like something.
Yeah, play acting.
To tease Deepak, Ceballos will be a good to do all these things.
Yeah, he comes from Real Madrid. Of course, he's used to this.
But getting back to the goals, actually, Ellen, I wanted to check with you regarding the Benfica game before we go to the Leicester game. I mean, the first goal was beautiful from Saka and all those things, but then they scored those two goals, and we didn't look like we were going to play out of the situation. I was worried that we are going out, and on top of that, he makes us change, which was bringing in Willian, which I didn't think was an attacking substitution. And I know that
damn hits you right on the face.
No, but it's not a Willian's goal. It was Tierney's
didn't
goal.
do anything that game.
No. It was like even contribution from Willian. Like see what?
No,
Willian
he started.
Like,
he started it.
No, not about starting. He pulled players along him by going towards the corner.
Yeah.
That freed Tierney and that allowed Tierney to shoot it. Like, see, Tierney will get all the credit. It was like Willian's effort which allowed that goal to happen.
I agree.
See, let me be like the first person to accept my mistake. I was like continuously like targeting Arteta why Willian was playing on the left instead of right. Because like Pepe was good at left and like he could have played there. Like I was one of the guys. But the last few games, right? Like maybe it's again, we have to see for a longer period, but like there are glimpses where Willian is actually doing some value add from the left. Mm-hmm. And I will have to take credit, like give credit to Arteta for that because like he was continuously playing in there, even when all the people were against that and like people were making fun of him and like that is finally showing some output.
And this indeed wouldn't have been a problem. Honestly, this indeed wouldn't have been a problem with Willian. We wouldn't be talking so much about him if he was earning like 100,000 per week or less. The fact that he's earning close to 200,000 and he's just able to do these tiny, small things in games when he comes on as sub, like that's where the problem is. Again, it's a situation of we are overpaying. And
no, Mike, I don't know if this is something that I have to bring in here because I have always had the concern. I don't think any other team or any other fans are worried about finances as much as Arsenal fans are. Right? We are
That's much because we had a professor of economics.
No, but we as a fan, we talk about the wages, we talk about the value, we talk about how the club's financials are going to be impacted by this. We are fans. We don't care how much the club pays someone, right? That's how it
It's
should
not
be.
like just us. Like every fans like are worried about their finances. We
You
just
think
don't
you think
talk
United are
about
happy
like
with the amount of
yeah.
money that Pogba gets every week? Definitely not. I mean, like it's the
No,
same
but we
across
we talk a lot more about finances than any
The
other
reason
fans that I
is
know.
like
because we're a
other
poor
clubs,
club.
right?
We have to talk about
Yeah.
finances.
Other clubs, right? They can buy players even if some big money. Let's say if Chelsea, for example, they spend like more than 100 million on few players who are on bench for almost the majority of the season. Like other clubs, right, would have played them like even if they are bad because of the money they have spent. So with us, right, every amount we spend, like say for example, we buy somebody with 80 million, we won't be buying any other player in that transfer season. So every money is like say, and we are not a big brand like say United or like say Real Madrid or a Barcelona, where like
But
we
we
get
are a
of
big
revenue.
see. We are not
Not
Barcelona or Real Madrid or United, yes, but we are better than a lot of other clubs.
Yeah,
no,
but
As a
we are
brand,
better. No,
as
we
a
are better,
brand, I
but
would
like
say we are bigger than even Bayern Munich. As a brand, I'm not saying as a club we
see,
are
but the
bigger.
thing is,
No,
I am
Bayern
really
Munich.
not sure about that. Bayern,
Bayern
Juventus,
Munich are
like,
so huge.
yeah, they're like
So-
different, completely different.
No, but again, they are also right. Like their players, they can go and let's say, for example, like a player, right, can go to Bayern Munich easily and he'll play because he knows he's going to win treble most of the seasons, and they'll go and join there. Whereas the player to come, right, when there is no Europe for us or there's no Champions League, you have to give him huge salary. Like, see, there are a lot of implications with respect to finance for us. So that is, and again, as I said, we had a professor of economics who was like seeing like say I won't spend £1 more for this player, and we have lost many players
40
like
million
that.
one, 40 million
No,
and one.
leave Suarez, like we have lost people like Ronaldo and others just because we couldn't pay little extra. I won't blame Wenger for that, but he has his own reason why like that player is valued some money. So right from that time, right, we are always concentrating on the money. Before Invincible, if you see, right, we were not worried about money at all. We were like one of the big spenders, like how Chelsea, City are now. So we doesn't care about money. None of the fans talk about that. They always talk about gameplay, wins and losses. Now, like after the Emirates, right, maybe you can say Ivory era was different. Emirates era, we started speaking about money. Because we said like we have loans, we cannot buy players, we have to be in transition. From that, it started.
Except for City and Chelsea, I have seen every fans like crying about their finance.
No, United fans don't.
They
Not as much.
daily cry about
They
Glazers.
do. Yeah. Like the recent Van de Beek acquisition, like it didn't make any sense even for them because they had all these midfielders and Van de Beek is already hardly playing, and they got him for 40 million. I'm pretty sure they're paying him upwards of like 100,000 per week. You know.
So that's the question, Arun. Would you take Van de Beek?
I would definitely take Van de Beek, but I don't think we need him now.
Even next season when we are left with Xhaka, Elneny and Partey as our midfield.
Yes, Xhaka and Partey will start. Again, Van de Beek will go back to bench.
Yeah. So would you really want to pay 40 million? Yeah. United are not going to sell him to us like for 20 million or anything, right? And this market, if they got someone for 40 million, even if they were to sell it, they'll at least want to get like 30, 35 million, recoup something.
Okay, let me put it this way. Put me this way.
We're going to get.
Okay, either you get Ceballos or Van de Beek.
I knew you were going to come there. I knew it's not about like that point. We at the current point right now, our ability is only to be able to get a player like Ceballos. We do not have the funds. We do not because you.
So if it is Ceballos or
right
like
now
Van de Beek, I'll still go for Ceballos. I'll still go for that.
I have reached to this point that I will take Willock than Ceballos.
That's a better thing. That's a better choice.
But he is playing decent and
he has been like
that's good for us.
Impressing a little bit. I hate that guy.
but
honestly, because I understand what you're asking me, but the thing is like we are a club that keeps talking about finances. We always hear at the beginning of every season that we only have like a 50 million to spend, and that is going to be generated with by player sales. And there's always talk about this invincible war chest. I want to see that that transfer chest, which has got this unlimited amount of money that could be used to buy all the players we want. I've been waiting for the last almost 10 years to see that.
170 million was what was bandied about, I think, in 2012 or 13 when they said.
I think that was for the next decade. Okay, we have 170 million for the next decade, so we're going to be spending like 20 million every year.
Because there was a period where like Arsenal were the only club to have cash in hand, whereas the other club, right, they have to pay. Like say when we got Santi and other people, other clubs were all in need of money. We didn't sign players at that time itself. How do you expect us to like sign a backup player like City kind of thing now?
No,
that money.
Okay, let me put it this way, right? Center midfield is a problem that we have to talk about because we are short on players there. We are getting by because Xhaka has been having an absolutely great run of form in which is absolutely happy stuff for Deepak, but he's been playing non-stop.
I'm looking for wood to knock on.
But he has been playing non-stop, and he has been playing day in and day out. Right?
Hope he gets rested before he makes some stupid mistake and people stop blaming him for
No, my question is like we need bodies there, and we need bodies who has quality, right?
Yeah, but like we cannot spend like say 40 or 50 million for a backup guy. Like see,
no, why are we talking about him as a backup?
No, I'm saying
why are we talking about whoever we are getting
as a backup?
Someone
to replace Xhaka.
See, he's not better than
someone
like,
to replace
Xhaka's role.
Someone to give a competition at least. To
see,
now who gives a competition to Xhaka?
Let me put it like say you can get Ronaldo. No, you take Ronaldo, Messi. They are like of great quality, but can they play the role which Xhaka does? No, they cannot. So Van de Beek is not somebody who's going to play like Xhaka. Like Partey is way ahead of like Van de Beek, like based on his current situation. Maybe Van de Beek in future can overtake Partey, but at the moment, right, Partey is like much better than Van de Beek. You're not going to start him. For that, right, like you can get somebody for 20 million, like with a Premier League experience or like a Champions League, Champions
Who is there at 20 million? That's the question.
There are like, see, you don't need you don't need a world record player or a world-class player. You need a player who can be like, say, if somebody is injured, can come up and play. You can use that money for some other positions where we really lack. Say, for example, right back is one position where we really lack. You can use the money there instead of like getting a world-class backup.
Okay.
How much did Rodri cost again?
Rodri, some 80 million. They were their highest.
And when was the last time you saw a defensive midfielder going for 80 million?
No, I don't remember. That's true.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're not going to be able to get like a top quality defensive midfielder with the amount of money that like we were thinking about. Essentially, when you want a backup, this guy is not definitely going to be as good as Xhaka because you spend 20 million. The game has evolved. The transfer market has evolved in such a way that like a proper defensive midfielder is not just like a ball breaker. He's not just an enforcer. He's having to do so many more things. So in that sense, if you want to look for a midfielder, you look for a midfielder who could possibly not be as good as Xhaka, but could be like, a backup when Xhaka is not able to play. And that guy you're going to be able to get for 20 million, not 80 million. So
that phrase right there, where he said, as good as Xhaka, was like, it just got me.
Okay.
One guy I can think of is that Fulham guy, that Anguissa or someone. He has been like really good.
And then the Camavinga or whoever, right? That guy.
Camavinga and all you are not getting for like 20 million. He would cost like some 70 million.
No, Picasso, you had 20 million. You are trying to buy Ronaldo. You're being a Wenger here. That's not going to happen. You have to be realistic. It's like 20
what did Ndidi cost for Leicester?
Ndidi,
I don't know, like 10 or something, I believe. Like
15 million or something. Yeah, I think so.
Right now,
you can get players like that, right? Like if you do a proper scout.
Ellen, Ndidi is now worth 70 million.
No, he's saying someone.
No. I'm not saying like someone like him.
Like Ndidi.
If you do a proper scouting, like.
But we let go of all the scouts. So we don't have scouts.
No. See, we have our stat scouts now. Like, the scouts are also like, you can say like have developed. So it's not like we cannot find somebody like whatever way it is.
It's been a long time since we found like some like a good like young player like we scouted for a long time and signed him.
Martinelli.
Okay. Yeah, but like
In my opinion, I seriously see Miguel as he's coming to the first team soon. I think he's going to be the one like filling that hole because he's being rated very highly. He's continuously getting a run of games, and like we hear about him. Like, I think since the beginning of the season, we always had this talk about like his potential and him being able to come in. So I think the plan would probably be like retain one of these guys like Willock or Amen, depending on how they perform, and then fast track Aziz into the team in a year or two. Like I think he's going to be the one taking the spot.
If someone like Fabregas comes, it would be awesome.
Fabregas cannot defend. We're talking about Xhaka replacement.
No, but Arun, I would come back to you about the game because I wanted to talk about Pepe and I wanted you to have the moment to shine to talk about him in the Leicester game.
You could probably say the first of many. That's how I would like to see the first of many moments to talk about Pepe. No, but honestly, like when people say that he's a flop, you have to think about all the things that have been happening. It's very easy to neglect the fact that he's been playing without an attacking midfielder, with a hobbling right back, who's like Lahm with one leg is better than Varane. I don't know if you guys would agree to it, but Lahm, and that's what we gave. That's what we gave to this guy. He's not able to play his natural game, and you're asking him to come to a new league and learn the ropes by giving him like 10 wooden pieces around him, not 10 wooden pieces, 3 wooden pieces around him. I'm not saying Pepe is great, but I'm saying he's someone with a lot of potential, and seriously, with the way in which we've been paying the money to Leo for his signature, I emphasize this again and again. We did not pay 72 million in one shot. We're paying it every year, and for that, what we're paying, this guy has improved a lot. Probably because of the 72 million tag that people think that he's a flop, but you think about how he has been playing over the last few games. Be it on the left, be it on the right, be it attacking, being defending. Calling him a flop is like I really don't know why people would want to do that. It makes no sense to me. The guy is not a flop. He just needed a few things to fall in place. I told this right from the beginning of the season. We have not been playing with the number 10. Pepe is a guy who needs to be released. He's always playing high up the pitch. You need a number 10 to release him. And without a number 10, we've been like struggling. When a number 10 came, his game completely evolved. And when he had like an overlapping guy, we saw what he was able to do. Who was the man of the match, guys? Who was the man of the match? It's fucking
Nicolas Pepe.
Seriously,
Aruna, I just want to highlight something here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Deepak. You finish.
Yeah. The reason people are saying Pepe is flop is because the amount we paid and the hype which was created around his signing.
We create hype for everybody. Like,
when you pay like 80 million, you expect like a person to come and score like 15 or 20 goals, which he's not doing. So that's why they are.
No. That's what I want to attack, Deepak. Like what the fans are saying. Like, say we paid 72 million like for Pepe. How much did Chelsea play for Havertz or like Ziyech?
But
they
that's
paid like
Chelsea.
50 to 60
Chelsea
like,
can
million.
play.
No, wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. Like they were considered. They were considered world class. Pulisic was considered world class when they were paid those money. Look at the impact they had in their first season. They were like really struggling. Pepe was like scoring goals and assisting in the very first season itself. Like even though the 72 million tag, when you compare with the other big signings, right? Pepe has like actually performed better than all of them in their first season. This season, like we were initially focusing on like as part of our transition on the defense, completely leaving out the attack. Where like Pepe struggled because like there was nobody to support him. And once like the number 10 came into picture, you could see a lot of matches Pepe has actually caused impact for us. So Pepe's fault was nowhere there. Like even with the 72 million tag, right? I think he's still justifying it, like based on his first season performance. When I compare with similar players across the league, he has actually done better than almost all of them with a similar price tag. But he's the one who's got into a lot more criticism. Look at how much like Havertz or others are supported by Chelsea. They are saying that Havertz can play a second striker or a false nine, and he has created more impact. That kind of vibration is what is coming from their fans. Whereas our fans, right,
also,
they always waiting for the first.
It's also about where we ended up in the table.
Of fans. No. ESR has closed his Twitter account because of our fans. What did he do wrong?
Yeah.
Just one mistake is what our fans are waiting for to, because like, see, maybe it is because of AFTV like spreading negativity and they got famous. Everybody wants to get famous and they are starting to take Urbino for that matter, who used to give a lot of good stats this entire season, because he knows what our fans want and he was continuously giving negative like stats about us. When there are like a lot more positive things also, but most of the thing that was coming from him was negative. So that's the reason why
this is why listeners, you have to promote us, because we are a positive podcast. We talk about positivity among all Arsenal fans. So
one more point about Pepe is like he's already equal to Stanley from last season, and we still have like more than 13-14 games to go. So he's a player who is on the rise, and this is when he needs the support of the fans and the team the most. And Arteta, he doesn't also see. We've never seen like Pepe come out and say, "Oh, I'm being ostracized," or "I'm being like," he's, when you have a guy like that who's that professional, it shows what he's going through and what he's capable of. That's a simple thing. Professionalism is probably the biggest trait of a football player, because you can have all the potential you want, but if you're not professional enough, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's exactly what he's showing.
Okay, so let me put you on the spot there for the next match. Do you want Pepe to start, or Saka to start, or Willian to start? Who starts where among those three?
I would start Pepe and Saka.
Pepe and Saka. Saka on the right and Pepe on the left, or Saka on the left and Pepe on the right?
Either one.
Okay.
Yeah. Willian can be like an impact player, honestly, but the form that Pepe is in right now, it's not one game. He's been showing this game after game after game. He gets dropped, doesn't play 2 or 3 games, comes back with the same form or even better. So that's the kind of form that he is in right now. He's starting to fulfill his potential, or that's what I would at least like to think. The thing about 72 million is the transfer market is changing so much with every year. Was Maguire worth 80 million? No. That's the thing. When you're paying 80 million for a fucking defender and you're complaining about 72 million playing for an attacker, it doesn't really make any sense to me. Seriously.
Okay, Ellen, about the other option I was going to ask, because I asked Arun about the wingers. So I want to ask you about like whom do you start ahead, like Laka or Aubameyang? Who gets
again like this current Arsenal team, right, with the Arteta's way of working, there's no clear starter. It always depends on strategy. Because if you take ESR and Odegaard, right, they are similar players. Nobody will think of them playing together, because ESR at the wings, right, is not effective. But the game where they both started together, like they were actually effective. So there are like lot of strategies like by which like he selects player whom he wants to play on that day in the way he wants to play. So as you rightly said at the beginning, we have like different players doing different things. So he's trying to find a strategy that works on that day using that skill set of that players. So if he's going to need a striker who's just going to score goals, right, he might start Auba. But if he wants a striker to involve with the midfielders more, right, he might go for Laka. So it depends on like what is the strategy. But like with the rest and everything, right, I expect Aubameyang to play like in that game. But like, see, speaking about strikers and other things, like I want to highlight one more thing, like as I was talking about strategies.
Sure, go ahead.
When was the last time, like I completely forgot, that's why I'm asking in this part. When was the last time we did a proper training set piece to score a goal?
Oh, that is an amazing goal.
I'm talking about a corner.
Yeah, I know.
It was.
We usually concede those corners.
When did we last do that?
Corners are the ones that we usually concede.
Yeah.
No, that even the free kick goal that Willian and David Luiz combined was amazing. It was really good to see that goal go in, and it was a clear strategy, that it was a set piece routine, proper training ground set piece. So I was happy. I don't remember Arsenal ever doing that.
No, because like why
set piece is like put the ball there. If someone scores, Well, we tried. That's what we have
I've
done.
seen like the opponent teams scoring more goals from our corner from counter attack than us scoring.
Yeah.
No, the reason why I brought that is like we had a new set piece coach, like or a goal, like, and we were like he defended like even our corners we concede goals from our corners or free kicks are also reduced. Like, but we were continuously blaming him for no like improvement in the attacking area.
Yeah.
It took him time even to get this.
Yeah.
Like for the players to try like on the ground. Like so that transition, right, always takes time. And like that's what like we were continuously talking now. Like
so that's why it's called
like,
trust the
this
process.
player is good or not. It takes time.
That's why we say trust the process.
It's definitely a process. You got to trust it. Like,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. It just
we are seeing
seems like it,
right? Results also. It is not like we were not seeing the results. Like, see, even when we were like very poor attacking wise, like we were clearly saying that like we are defensively good at that time. Before December, I'm saying like defensively we are strong, attackingly we are weak. That's what we were continuously commenting on that time, or like continuously like putting all our frustrations on that. And then like once it started like towards the attacking side, there were mistakes at the initial stage, but like the defensive thing, right, hasn't reduced at all. See, yes, there are
very good point.
Individual mistakes or this thing, but the overall defensive structure, right, hasn't gotten. So it's a slow process where he started from the defense and he has gone now. So again, one more season under him, like the team might be like completely different. Like they might play like a top 4 team later on, like the next season. But that kind of transition is happening, and like that is why I said we will not be like dependent on any player going forward, and that's why like I cannot say who can start.
Deepak was smiling when you mentioned top 4, but Deepak, I was about to come to you anyways.
I'm saying they should play like a top 4 team next season. Otherwise, this trust the process is pointless.
No, but then the question is, right, like for me, there are 12 games from now to the end of season. And we have Europa League where we have Olympiacos for the next round, which is actually lucky. We could have gotten any of the other strong heavyweights.
I don't want Olympiacos. Like I thought after going to Europa, we'll be playing different teams. The same Olympiacos team we play in Champions.
No, but that's true. But it's easier to go through than many other team, right? If we would have got like Villarreal or United or Spurs, it would have been difficult. And
really, you think Villarreal would be a problem? Really?
Emery.
Yeah, seriously,
I feel that way will be much more better. Like getting tougher teams, right, will help us to focus more, and we have more chances.
Yeah, you were saying these kind of good against better teams, right? So probably
turning tides on me. But Deepak, since you were talking about the top 4, right? So with 12 games to go, and with Europa League in our like, I don't know if we are there in the competition.
Top 4.
You are going to say top 4? With the 12 games to go, we are going to finish top 4? Is that what you are going to say?
No. I asked when did I talk about top 4?
No, but next season about top 4. So this season, what is your take? Especially since December, we have been playing really good. We have been gathering good points. So where do you see us finishing? Because I asked the question to Ellen last pod and Arun the previous pod. So I'm asking you this.
Let me see the table.
we are below.
I think we would finish 9th.
Really, that's as much as we would go up.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's the max we can go, because like.
See, the issue is like there are a lot of other teams with games in hand, unlike us,
so
who are like above us, not even below us.
Aston Villa has a couple of games in hand. Spurs has 1 game in hand. Everton has 1 game in hand. And I don't see them losing points. Maybe Spurs. Yeah, but or Spurs or Villa. Probably we might finish, if we are lucky, we might finish 8th. I don't see like Everton dropping that much points. They are grinding out results.
Okay. So let's go for the...
Like we can get, like if you are 7th, right? If you are 7th and like we can get, right? Like provided City wins Carling Cup.
Qualifying. We go
qualifying.
We go through qualifying,
7th.
Why do you want Europe? Do you think we are going to like go far into Europe?
Let me give a simple example, Picasso.
We
Go ahead,
live
Arun.
in Europe just because we are having a Champions League salary and we cannot afford to not play in Europe. We have to play in Europe. It's not about like getting beaten there or anything. It's about the money. We have to play in Europe. There's no other go.
Because just to
Not
add
playing
there,
would not be like a huge fail. We would just be losing a lot of money. Probably like it'll affect the transfer window. But the playing there is that's why it's very important playing in Europe.
we'll be saying Laka mostly like end of this season. We'll like say Nikita is like even whether he's not there or there.
No,
like,
he's going to be sold. I don't think so.
That's not. He's not useful. If you're selling and you need to buy a striker, and if you're not in Europe, you will not have as much money as you want. Plus, who will come and join a club? A big striker will come and join a club if you are not playing in Europe.
But
so Europe will have like lot of impact.
But would we buy a big striker on top of Aubameyang staying? So I don't think so. I think we'll
assume that Auba is like injured or like is away for African nations for a month. Like whom will you play if you don't have a good backup striker?
No, we'll find a backup striker. We also have like Martinelli in the wing.
No. What's a good striker will cost you 40-50 million. Strikers are like rare breeds now, like who will cost money even in this pandemic period.
Okay.
So we need money from Europe.
Okay.
How much did that kid Fabio Silva cost? Like he was all of 19. I think he cost like 40-50 million, right?
Yeah.
That's the situation we are in right now. So
we might be signing Messi. You never know.
We'll have to sell the entire team. Remember, it reminds me of what Klopp told Ibra. Like Ibra wanted to sign for Klopp, and he said, "I'll have to sell my entire team to sign you." So that'll be the situation.
But anyways, with the Burnley game around the corner, let me get your guys, predictions for the game. I'll start with Arun. Burnley game, Arun.
It's an away game. I'll be happy with a draw. Honestly, I'll be happy with a draw right now because Burnley, like, I know they're at the bottom, but then when it comes to playing us, they get their mojo back somehow, and they like defend with all their might and start injuring our players.
Even with Pepe,
I'm not. Pepe, honestly, why not? I mean, like, what doubts do you have? Pepe has to be there.
No, even with Pepe in, you're saying draw. You don't have trust on your own player.
He'll probably be the one scoring that goal. He'll be the one scoring that one goal. So it'll be like a 1-1 draw, and he'll score the one goal.
Okay. Ellen, what about you? Your predictions?
2-0 win for Arsenal.
Okay. Are you going to predict who's going to score?
I know, like the Burnley will trouble us. I know Burnley will trouble us, but like I feel like we'll still like do better than them based on the current form.
And a clean sheet. You're saying a clean sheet.
Like Leicester game, I'm completely wrong. So let me open. Yes, I like after conceding continuously in the early minutes, right? Like I think this is the game like we switched on from the very minute. Team there will be a clean sheet. Ceballos Elneny won't play this game. It will be like Partey and Xhaka. So when they play in the midfield, right, we tend to do well.
Okay.
And it will not be like a set piece goal, like maybe one penalty and one like a field goal.
Okay. Deepak, your predictions.
I think Arun is laughing when I say penalty. Like we will still get penalty. It will be that kind of.
We'll concede a penalty, maybe. That's what Arun is thinking. But Deepak, what's your prediction for the game?
It's 2-1 or 3-1 for us.
Oh, Deepak is predicting a win. So that's a rare.
If we win that game, it'll be great going into the derby because like we would have come after a string of good wins, and that would be great. Given that they're also winning now after 4 straight losses, they've also started winning now. So it would be great going into the derby with like a very good win. I'm hoping for a win, but I think it might be a draw.
I think it'll be a win. I think it'll be a 2-1 win. I think we'll concede customary goal to Burnley, but we would also score a couple of goals. Is what I think. So hopefully we meet back after the victory. Thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. It's been a really nice one. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.